Dan had just finalized his divorce and was feeling lost and alone. He had always been a skeptic when it came to the idea of extraterrestrial life, so when he saw strange lights in the sky one night, he brushed it off as a trick of the mind. But as the days passed, the lights became increasingly frequent and harder to ignore. They seemed to be getting closer and closer to his small town, and he began to feel a sense of unease. He tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination, but deep down he knew that something was off. One night, as he was lying in bed, he saw a bright light shining through his window. He got up to investigate and was horrified to see a massive, unfamiliar craft hovering just outside his home. Suddenly, the craft began to emit a deafening noise, and Dan felt a sense of panic wash over him. He knew that this was no hallucination, this was real. As the craft began to lower itself to the ground, he saw the door open, and figures began to emerge. They were unlike anything he had ever seen before, tall, slimy, and terrifying. They were not human, they were aliens. He could hardly believe his eyes. The aliens began to move towards his home, and Dan knew that he had to flee. He grabbed whatever he could and ran out of the house, his heart pounding with fear. He could see the aliens moving through the streets, destroying everything in their path, and he knew that he had to get as far away as possible. He drove for hours, not stopping until he reached the city. He found a television and see the news broadcast. The invasion has begun all over the world, destroying cities and killing thousands of people. He couldn't believe it. He had witnessed the beginning of an alien invasion, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. He began to wander the streets, feeling completely alone and helpless. He thought of his ex-wife and children, hoping they were safe and sound. But as the days passed, it became clear that there was no hope of victory. The aliens were in complete control. Dan knew that he had to survive and protect himself. He saw people getting captured and executed by the aliens. He knew he had to avoid them at all costs. As Dan struggled to survive in a world overrun by aliens, his feelings of isolation and loneliness turned to a burning hatred towards the invaders. He saw them as the cause of all his problems and the destruction of humanity. He knew he had to do something to fight back. He joined a resistance group, dedicating his life to finding a way to defeat the aliens and take back the planet. As the resistance group fought on, Dan found a sense of purpose that he had never felt before. He became a skilled fighter, and his hatred for the aliens fueled him to become one of the group's most effective members. But the Resistance's efforts were met with fierce resistance, and many of them were killed in the process, including his closest friends. Dan's obsession with the aliens was all-consuming. He was determined to see their destruction, even if it meant sacrificing his own life in the process. As the final battle approached, Dan knew that it was a matter of time until the aliens were defeated, but he also knew that it would not be without a cost. The invasion had left the planet devastated, but the final victory over the aliens would be worth it. In the end, Dan emerged victorious, but also alone, as his determination to avenge the death of his loved ones had cost him his relationships and his own mental health. The invasion was over, but the scars left would never heal.
Leave a like and subscribe for more scary stories.